It's a Friday, November 17th, and we've got a packed show for you today. That's right, it's the second episode of all time and of ever. Anytime with Ken and Alden. I'm Ken, that's Alden. It's kind of a YouTube show, kind of a radio show, kind of us hanging out with you, talking about the things that make the world spin. Mr. Diaz, how are you?
I am doing all right, my friend. I enjoy being able to decompress at the end of the week with you literally anytime. It's very nice.
Literally anytime. Thanks to everyone who, the music band's still playing. Thanks for everyone who came out to the show last week, supported our first live show right here on my channel. But don't forget, we're growing this show on my channel, but also its own channel. I know that might be, it's not complicated for you, but it's maybe complicated for YouTube and algorithms. You can go over and subscribe to that channel anytime with Ken and Alden. Just search, you'll find on YouTube. Links down below as we try to build up that show. This show, we got that channel with clips, clip outs, full rebroadcast of the episodes, but you can catch it here live and on demand throughout the week. And Alden, we have a lot to get to here, but let's look back on last week. Our fond memories. We're really happy that everyone showed up.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a wonderful first episode, a nice little pilot. When you've been working with someone as long as we've been working together on various things, it doesn't feel new to us, but it's exciting that people look at you and are like, this is exciting and we're happy for you. So thank you, everybody that showed up and conversated with us.
Conversated away. And this is a live show. I noticed I messed up my hair. I have no hair left, but when you mess up what you have left, gosh, it hurts your soul.
It does.
Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. We're back. A lot of people checking live, Mike, like Michael McCarso, Laserbolt Videos. Joseph Thomas is here. Joshua Bernard, Kingsport Cal, my man in Tennessee. I got some Tennessee stuff coming up. Maddie Gunner checking in from the UK. Natalie's here. Eric's here. Crafted Jedi. Jerry the Cannon Junkie's here. I'm not going to shout out every name, but I just like pointing at screens and going, I know that person.
It's really nice to see so many returning people and some people that I don't know, maybe people that have followed you from your solo ventures, friends of mine that are coming through, a lot of them from the podcasting space. It's very cool to see everybody want to talk about some stuff and celebrate the end of the week. Got some happy Fridays in there. You are damn right about that.
Yeah, let's get to it here soon. Oh, also we say, super chats and super thanks, of course, are always welcome. This is America. We like money. But we are going to say that, hey, at the end of the show, we do have some times for like a Q&A. If you got some super chats or some questions or just some questions in general, we might pick them up throughout the show, but we got some time at the end formatted to put that in there. So there you go. Little housekeeping.
Yes, indeed.
But first up, Alden, we have to ask this question. We decided to move this to the front of the show because we figure it might help set the tone for what's coming. What Ben Affleck are we?
We are going to be today a special Ben Affleck that I love a lot. Let me pull him up here. This Ben right here is what I call contemplative Affleck. It was... He has this phoenix back tattoo, which he claimed at the time was for a role. That was not true. He just didn't want to get flamed for it. But Ben is a phoenix. Like, look at him. He's thinking. He might be a little bit depressed, just looking out at the ocean. And he's got the phoenix on his back. And this was right before he got back with J-Lo and just began this run. So we could all be contemplative Phoenix Affleck.
Do you think he was like? Do you think he was like manifesting a return to J-Lo?
I hope so, because I got to meet Ben before they got back together at a press junket, and he's a very nice man, very cool, very quiet, and sort of like reads the room and everything. So it wouldn't be surprising to me to know that he's a big thinker and a big planner.
Yeah, and a dreamer. Just a kid from Boston trying to make a go of it. I love that. We're big fans of Ben here. And that one's Ben on the beach, but that might as well be all of us getting out of the shower and just looking out at the world.
100%.
And that's kind of where we're at this week. We are, though, going to get into some of the news headlines. Doesn't mean we're going to discuss every story, but we're going to have fun taking a look at what is going on in the news today. Here's a look at some of the headlines making the world spin this week. He did it. That real life Ned Flanders did it. That's right. Mike Johnson, the man who doesn't know his debit card PIN because he doesn't know what a bank account is, got the needed support from the left of the congressional aisles to get a deal approved that will keep the government open, breaking the heart of Spirit Halloween store staff ready to move into the Capitol building. Whether or not the Freedom Caucus jumps Johnson in the parking lot and has him drawn and quartered remains to be seen. But we are here at ANYTIME. Got to admit, we got to make sure we give credit when credit is due. Mike Johnson might think open mouth kissing is a sin and is a repressed homophobic bigot, but he made this Christmas miracle happen. Jesus loves you, Mikey. Jesus loves you. This week saw several protests erupt over the horrific situation in Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel. And yes, by situation, I do mean an evil terrorist attack and a cold-hearted genocide in the name of justice. Some protests were pro-Palestinian, some were pro-Israel. Most of them were peaceful. Some of them were absolutely not. But all of them continued the rising tensions between people everywhere. Friends no longer talk to friends. Old school Democrats are agreeing with Meghan McCain. New school Democrats are agreeing with Osama bin Laden. And Gal Gadot is still hated by everyone. Imagine there's no heaven. As everyone continues to share their earnest and passionate thoughts on this ongoing tragedy, no one's provided the one answer to the problem. Hate continues to bring more hate. And all of this might accidentally put the one man who probably thinks he has the answer into the White House. It was learned this week that the town of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, passed a law back in June prohibiting homosexuality in public, and they're using that law to ban books from libraries that might violate this rule. This law, again, passed in June, but is just now being brought to light, bans, quote, indecent behavior, including indecent exposure, public indecency, lewd behavior, nudity, or sexual conduct. Sure. No one likes to watch two young lovers neck in public to celebrate going steady, and there are certainly creeps that expose themselves indecently. But I guess it's hard to make a law that just targets men. Who determines these lines of decency that can't be crossed is the problem. Why stop here? Villains from a 1980s movie ban dancing, holding hands, or eating an ice cream cone with your eyes closed. This is what happens when those clinging to fear use language and coding to oppress those they fear. On one hand, I'd like to help any gay person leave Murfreesboro, but you know what? No, they shouldn't have to leave their homes to be themselves. Stay, fight, make Murfreesboro gay again. That's what we say around here. And finally, this past week, everybody was kung fu fighting in Washington, D.C. near the White House. First, Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee, a man who believes aliens just might be angels and wants to spend your tax dollars to prove it, accused recently deposed Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, of giving him, and I quote, a clean shot to the kidneys after McCarthy passed him in the hallowed halls of our government. McCarthy denied this claim, just like he tried to deny the 2020 presidential election votes of two states Biden won, saying, I didn't shove or elbow him. It's a tight hallway. Burchett chased after him, and the two exchanged words. But this turns out was only the undercard. That's right. Later in the day, Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullins, a name that challenges you to be the better person and not make a stereotypical joke about it, challenged Teamster boss Sean O'Brien to a fight on the floor of the Senate chambers during the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee hearing. Already exciting. O'Brien had previously sent a tweet mocking the no doubt super strong, tough, and 100% manly Mullins and told him any place, anytime, cowboy. And after a series of testy, and let's face it, hilarious responses from O'Brien, Mullins stood up, took off his wedding ring, and challenged O'Brien to settle it right there. The fight was stopped when Senator Bernie Sanders threw Werther's original candies at them both until they calmed down. Mullins later excused his actions by pointing out that duels and violence used to be a staple of the U.S. government up until the early 1800s, when they then turned that violence on Native Americans. He cited Andrew Jackson, one of the most despicable men to serve as president, as a particular inspiration. No word on when this match will take place, but Alden, I'm hoping they draw numbers 1 and 2 at the Royal Rumble in January. That's a look at the news. Alden, anything you want to talk about today?
Yeah, it's time to talk about fighting. It's time to talk about these potential brawls and these fists that would have gotten thrown had Bernard Sanders not sat there and said, no, you're a senator, sit down.
Yeah, sit down.
I just the fact that this fragile old man had to talk some sense into him, it's just hilarious. Basically, the entire lineup is full of lunacy and chaos. I love that we've started a movement here already.
Yeah.
This is very exciting to me. Make Marls Freeborough okay again. But yeah, this fighting in particular. Let's hone in on this. We've already had some comments here. Like Kingsport Cal, hell yeah, all politicians should duke it out. I'm torn on this. I am torn.
I know what you mean, right? Like,
It's
look,
like
yeah,
you respect the audacity and the look. I don't agree with Mr. Mark Wayne on a lot of things, but I just want to say Mark Wayne. But it's the fact that he said we're two consenting adults. This is a time. This is a place.
Yeah.
I have never seen such a formal challenge, at least in my day.
It was a slap across the face with a white powdered glove, indeed, right? Yeah, and look, I love this Sean O'Brien guy, but he had tweeted some stuff, and part of Mullins' response, I will have to be honest and get the whole story, is he said there's online bullies and they hide behind the keyboards, and sometimes you stand up to them. Yeah, I actually don't disagree with that. It's just the time, the place happened to be the Senate chambers. What were you actually going to do? Did you play that out? And it's who he is. He's a former MMA fighter, by the way. Got no problem with combat sports. Got no problem with anyone who chases that as a discipline. And I like watching that stuff too. I'm not going to lie from that. Liking MMA or being at MMA doesn't automatically make you a toxic asshole male. But this is the pattern. This is where it goes. And this is that thought of the only only true way to power is to prove how tough you are. There's no peace. There's no discussion. As O'Brien said, well, let's sit down and have tea and work this out. Mullen doesn't want to have to do that.
No, he doesn't. It was definitely he used as an excuse. You could tell that there was already animosity. Without tweets, there would have been animosity. It's interesting to ponder with adults because we tell children, "Oh, violence isn't the answer. Violence isn't the answer." But there is that if someone shoves you on the playground, do you shove them back? Like there's a healthy amount of defend yourself that comes across in all aspects of society, from the playground all the way up, evidently, to some of our highest offices. Should somebody be able to we have some states, I guess, that still have citizens arrest. Should we bring back duels, just sans pistols, like sanctioned bare knuckle boxing? We have Jared chiming in, introducing single combat to Congress. It's just it's the complicated. It's funny, but it is complex. Do they have the right to just duke it out?
Yeah, look, I think if they want to be out back, that might have been it. But a lot of people in chat going, look, I'm not going against a Teamster leader. I'm not going against an Irish Teamster leader. And without a doubt, I think Mullen would know how to fight. But it's the attitude behind it. It's what's going on. McCarthy and Burchett, that whole thing is comical. There was also a report, I didn't even get a chance to go into it, of Capitol Police having to show up at a closed door GOP meeting, like a team meeting, a clubhouse meeting, because there might have been some sort of violence. Adam Knight, who knows a thing or two about combat sports, as does Matty Gunner. Yeah, it's just I think we can hammer it home. It's both comical, it's sad, it's tragic in a way, in our hallowed halls, but our hallowed halls have been desecrated before, intentionally and unintentionally. But it's the attitude behind this dude who poses for pictures with all his guns, who is transphobic, who is all about, real men. He and Josh Hawley, the aggressive men are under attack. That ain't the case. That is not what toxic masculinity is about. It is about the emotional damage you're causing yourself while also causing damage, sometimes physical, to a lot of victims out there in the world. It's a more complex issue. And we get this dummy, a year younger than me, by the way, holding court in Senate chambers like this. It's embarrassing.
It is, and I want to bring up this comment from our friend Nikki Kumar from ISP, works with us on Casterly Talk. Violence within government is a sign of a failing democracy, so we might as well accept that's where we're at. Yeah, I mean, it gets thrown around a lot. Like, is this a failed state? Where are we at? Are we even really first world? Our elections almost got overturned. And so now people want to throw fists. It's definitely a macro political question, but also I'm curious, for our viewers and for me, for you, Ken Knapsack, not just the broadcaster and the host, but the man, where do you stand on, if let's say you had a kid, where do you stand on someone, challenges you? Do you always turn the other cheek? Is it really case by case?
I think you want to aim for turn the other cheek. It's also interesting. Mullins cited a duel that Abraham Lincoln got into when he was a young lawyer that was going to be settled by swords because Lincoln did not want to get shot, and he chose swords as the weapon. And then Lincoln. It's typical of Republicans. They point to Lincoln as this great example, and then they forget the rest of the story. And Lincoln was ashamed of that for the rest of his life. Yes, for me, look, I as someone who worked in public safety for 17 years, I can tell you there are times when sometimes the only answer is a step up on the use of force continuum. And that sometimes goes bad and goes wrong and always looks bad. And sometimes, most of the time we see in the big public picture, it is bad. But it's what is the form of justice that you bring in? What is true justice? And that spins out into the world in a tragic way, as we're seeing now in other parts of the world, right? And have seen forever. When does the violence need to stop? And I quickly give the example I've said before. In my public safety days early on, there was a time where a male, a white male, I won't say that that's the only stat we have in that category, but a white male who was going around the mall that I was a security official director at, was exposing himself and pleasuring himself to women who were working at like Fredericks and Hollywood of Victoria's Secret. And we couldn't chase him. And everyone wanted us to get him. And the store managers were upset that we couldn't get him. And mall management wanted us to get him. And we wanted to get him. And we went through great leagues. Finally, we got him. And when we got him, I wasn't there on this one particular day. I swear to God. My guys, my coworkers threw him down 3 stairwells and beat the fuck out of him. And that was fun for them. And that was a fun day at the office. But was that the actual need of justice? Was that what needed to happen? And they patted themselves on the back and everyone cheered, right? Not watching it, but no cameras were rolling, but everyone cheered that because, yay, we solved the problem. And that guy, I would argue, deserved to, not necessarily the violence, but deserved to be brought to justice. It was horrible what he was doing.
Absolutely.
What's the next case? Or you're throwing someone down the stairwell because they stole a skateboard or a smoothie at a food court. Like, when does it stop and who decides when to stop? So settling it, that's what I'd say. Yeah, sometimes it has to happen. Maybe it's unavoidable, but other times, what does it lead to?
Yeah, it's definitely complex. I wouldn't even call it a punch. I have thrown one strike, a poor strike in my entire life. And similarly, there was a student in middle school that was harassing girls and guys, pinching people on the ass, just being annoying and touching people and getting in people's space. Everybody was annoyed at it. Girls were getting really uncomfortable and sad. And I told this kid, I think this is 12-year-old, maybe 13-year-old Alden. I was like, if you touch me again, I'm going to hit you. This is the line. I'm uncomfortable. It's a substitute teacher who doesn't care, who's just on her phone. I'm going to hit you, and I hit him, and then it became this entire thing. Going to they wanted to suspend me or whatever. Ended up talking them down to like a 1-2 hour detention because my mom, love this woman, love my mother, had my back, and I said as a 13-year-old, I was like, so you just condone harassment, you condone sexual harassment. And your staff drops the ball, and I told him I'd hit him. Like, come on, look at my record. So it's all a lot of it is very nuanced. Like, I was never getting in trouble. So for me to strike this guy, I think I saw him years later, and we pretended not to know each other, which I think was which is fantastic. Oh, I smacked Charlie Ashby pretty good outside Novotel. I did, but we had both had a few drinks, and it was more of a love tap.
Okay,
let's see.
Fair. We don't have a witness.
Bill Sheehy, my good friend Bill. I think it's worth noting that both Holly and Mullins are on video running and hiding during J6. Yeah, interesting that he didn't have the same toughness when it might have been required.
Yeah. What's funny, I was looking at a lot of the Mullen photos. He goes to the door. You could tell he's probably got this I'm going to kick their ass attitude. And then he probably wisely ducks and hides and runs. And then, of course, Holly putting that fist up and then sprinting down the hall. And the thing, too, drives me crazy. I've always said I have no problem with the concept of gun ownership and Second Amendment. You want to go, I got it. How far you need to go and why you won't submit to, 8 rounds of background checks, that's another conversation for another show. But those dudes like Mullen that collect an arsenal and they pose for all these pictures, it's this absolutely kind of false sense of strength that they want to project. And meanwhile, all he wants to do is, oppress transphobic athlete or transgender athletes with his transphobia. And that's who they really are at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Well said. And I think that that sort of puts a nice bow, at least for right now. Who knows if maybe Dana White is out there putting together one of his Paul Brothers YouTube, MMA crossover. Maybe WWE will get in on it. Who knows? But maybe this will escalate. But for right now, I think that really is the key point. Analyze the character of the person. And when we dig deep, we kind of see this is somebody who is just probably waiting to make a scene. And at the end of the day, sometimes those people should be ignored.
Should be ignored. Look, a lot of these politicians, particularly on the Republican side and sometimes on the Democratic side, I do have to take that honest look at it, but they're just hot air, bags of hot air, trying to get their branding out there so they can win re-election. And that might have been part of it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else you want to? The Burchett McCarthy stuff's just silliness from them.
Yeah.
Will the budget and the House, all that, the Senate voting on it, that's an ongoing story. We're not necessarily done there. It's just curious. The only thing I'll take out of it is watching the Freedom Caucus kind of dangling a sword over Johnson's head of what's been going on. So we'll see if that clown show continues on that side.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely clown shows all around. I will say just a quick note on the McCarthy side of it when it comes to fights. I do love how this Mullins one got all of the attention and smoke from the media cycle and on social media because he looks like he could fight somebody, and so does O'Brien. If I heard someone tried to fight McCarthy, I'd be like, that ain't a real fight. Like that, he does not project that same energy.
It would be what Adam Knight just said in chat of senator slap fights. New from Endeavor Media. If Burchett and McCarthy got into it, I talked about that on my 20 Minutes of Coffee show. I loathe both these individuals, but I'd actually side with McCarthy in that. I actually would side because Burchett is such a absolute whack job when it comes to some of the things going on in the world, particularly UAP stuff and just who he is. But maybe there'd be a draw, just one of those double count outs and a dusty finish.
Yeah, we want to see now in your comments. Give us your dream booking. What are some matches between officials that you would like to see? I honestly wish that I could have seen Bernie run interference in a real fight. I would like to see Bernie have to attempt to pull one of them off of the other.
It was of all the senators there, it was Bernie, the one who's just like, everyone stop fighting. Peace of the world, please. It was him, and it like what it's yeah. Anyways,
yeah,
poor Bernie.
Pretty great. So yeah, things are we're having a normal one here in the United States, and
yes,
it's you got to wonder how these stories are being covered. If anybody is watching any of our, like Maddie, if you happen to have seen maybe on the UK side of things, if there's any coverage, what do they think right now?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot going on over there, of course.
Yeah, one of my listeners on the 20 Minutes of Coffee said, Douglas Dubois, was like, hey, I think in New Zealand we get like this a little bit, but not like that. I love Adam Knight says Bernie Sanders on a pole match. That's
Bernie on a pole. We got Obama v. Trump. I'm sure both would enjoy that.
Yeah.
Arnie v. Trump, UFC. So Arnie v. Trump in the cage. Now,
yeah,
I would not want to be trapped in a cage with Schwarzenegger, even at his advanced age.
Yeah. No, I would not. I think I'd pay for all of those. So let's do it. We booked it. That's the swing through news. As always, there's so many other things going on in the world. Some just absolutely horrific. We don't want to turn our eyes away from Gaza, Israel, that whole situation there going on there, or the Sudan, the civil war, this original. There's a lot. But I think we sometimes often feel the need to comment on everything every week, but we have other things we want to get to. So we'll move on from the news into our main topic. And this, Alden, is something close to your heart.
Yeah. Speaking of having a normal one, the internet really can't handle, how do I word this? Women and people of color. And it seems that this is just going to be an ongoing culture war. As you can see, for those of us that are joining us on video, podcast listeners, it was a photo of the three superheroines, Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, and Monica Rambeau. I have not actually even seen this movie yet, which is part of the comedy, so I'm not sure what code name she ends up going by, but I'm just going to call her Monica Rambeau. The Marvels, the newest release from Marvel Studios, a studio which, depending on who you ask, is either thriving or completely in shambles. I guess it just depends on what gets more clicks. They managed to release in 1 week the greatest single episode of Disney Plus television ever, the most phenomenal, give it all the Emmys, and then the next day they were dead again. So it's an interesting time. What I decided to do while I was in bed was do a classic Alden Twitter thread, something I am somewhat known to do. It's not my fault that they have character limits on Twitter. That's Elon Musk's fault, and I'm not going to pay him for more. And so threads it is. And I simply analyzed the fact that a lot of box office reporting, something that I know you love, Ken. I know you love box office reporting.
Love that.
Who doesn't? It's the greatest. A lot of the even legacy trades, not just your comicbook.coms and colliders, but like the old Hollywood trades are out there. It bombed, worst opening ever, this, that, and the other thing. And yet no mention of the fact that these 3 stars, Brie Larson, Tiana Paris, and Iman Vellani, and Samuel L. Jackson with 4th billing, one of the legends of the business, could not promote this film. Could not. It had 0 promotion after the fact that 2 of its stars come from Disney Plus series, which is something that we'll talk about, I'm sure, as we move toward other things like the Dave Filoni Star Wars movie, whatever. We're in a time now where some of the buildup for these projects is trapped behind a paywall. You combine that with things like the fact that Ms. Marvel was sent out to die against the Kenobi series, and it was an underwatched project, except in POC households. Lots of different factors that I discussed, at least 8 or 9 reasons in a 10-tweet thread, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Never said anything about the quality of the movie. Never said anything about whether or not I like the movie, because I haven't seen it. But these are just analytical points about the culture war landscape that we're in. There's an ongoing right-wing grifter hate movement against Brie Larson because she said that there should be more journalists of color covering movies. God forbid. Lots of different things that come up against this movie, and I have been flamed on every platform, even my personal Facebook, which, like, do whatever you want. But what a weird place to try to pick a fight. Like, old photos of mine were getting comments like, "Yo, Marvel shell. You're horrible. I hope you like cashing that check, you cuck beta soy." Like, so weird. So we're going to talk about who are the real bad guys here. What is going on in this like movies culture war? We have somebody that has literally hosted movie talk programs before here with you, Ken. It's weird. And then we're going to transition into this idea of being a public facing individual and getting straight up harassed for things that are just fact-based analysis in this entertainment and sports talk world. So you tell me, as a veteran of this space and of movie discussions and pop culture discussions, where you stand on this. Does this ring a bell for you? Has this happened to you?
It absolutely,
what's your read?
It absolutely rings a bell. And I'll start here. Before anyone wants to, throw darts at our faces on some of the stuff, there's always going to be some stuff you might want to discuss around these movies that are related to the box office not doing as well, right? And you brought up all of them, and all of them may be true, and there could be some kind of MCU burnout, or there could be a problem with the paywall stuff. All that stuff is very well true. This happened also, with Dial of Destiny and some of the big ones. But I feel it all filters down into these dumb tweets and these dumb headlines that only stop at what you're saying, the box office failure. And then they don't allow for any of the room. And here's my big issue with some of the stuff is the world has changed. Digital media changed the world in a way where you have to understand the 360-degree view of what you're discussing. I think it's fun sometimes just to discuss superhero movies as superhero movies. I love just discussing the silly stuff in Star Wars. You want to talk about Lobot's puffy sleeves on a shirt? Let's talk about it. But in the larger scale, in the larger picture, with the amount of people and with what's going on and what has always been going on in the world, the conversation is always about something bigger, and you have to be aware of it. The example I'll go to is post Last Jedi, which is when it really, really started to change. You could find a lot of people having some issues with the film, and wanting to criticize the film and having perhaps good reasons. And also, if it's their personal opinion, truly, then that's valid to me, even if I disagree with it. And I'd be on shows with people that I disagree with vehemently. But you can't have those conversations that leave the back door open. You put one foot in the door for the culture wars, for the racism, for the misogyny, the sexism, all the isms come in. And there's so many people I know, some people that I've worked with, who don't care and are blissfully unaware, and other people who I think are aware that they're propping the door open. So when you're having a conversation about the box office sucked, and maybe it actually did, you are not talking about the full picture, and then all those grifters and all those just a-holes come in, and that's where it flames up. And the meaning of the stories, the purpose of the stories, the art of the stories, and who's affected by the stories. We got our friend Adam in chat just says, I like the Marvels. More importantly, so did my daughter, and she loved it, which is the kind of the point. And I've seen a lot of that too. And that's where it started to change for me, where I did not want to just talk on these movie shows anymore. I wanted to understand the big picture and understand our place in the conversation. That's where it changed.
Absolutely. You said so many wonderful things there. That point there about actually understanding the material is so important. That's something that you all have championed over on Force Center. You, Jennifer Landa, Joseph Scrimshaw. I try to do that on Octa Radio. A lot of our friends do in the Star Wars space, in the larger fantasy space with Casually Talk. We all try to do our part because it has become sort of not cool. It's not in vogue to like things and be vulnerable and be passionate and find what works. And it's getting to the point now where it's like, I don't want to hear what you thought of the box office of a movie if you cannot tell me what the movie was about. Like we teach second graders and third graders to circle main idea in a paragraph. Here's a paragraph about, this chipmunk and how a chipmunk lived. What's the main idea of it? That it is embarrassing that they can do it and these people can't. Like, people like they think almost like they are extra smart and that they figured something out because they're aware that a corporation is making it. You've encountered that in Star Wars, right? Like you'll say like, oh, this theme in Solo, a Star Wars story really meant something to me. And people will be like, huh, you mean that corporate Disney cash grab because it's a character you grew up on? And it's like, yeah, you're very smart.
No one asked for that movie. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, what does that actually mean? You guys don't understand. And it's frustrating.
Yeah, we could go off in that direction too, but it's like part of the thing. Again, I want to be clear. If you just want to have a silly movie show, I think that's totally fine. But I think you have to be aware of that's what you're doing. And so I was recently at a company working this past year. And like, again, I want to disclose, I haven't seen the Marvels yet either. You haven't. And I actually think that's perfect for this conversation because it isn't always about what the movie is. It's a conversation around it. But we watched the trailer at this job I was working at. And I was on the show and I said, well, it looks like this trailer is showing this kind of theme that's interesting to me of these three different women from different perspective, experiences, and backgrounds who maybe are having trouble working together, don't feel like they should work together. And society kind of rips women apart from each other in this way. That's part of the damage that toxic masculinity and patriarchy does. These women probably could work together, but there's a feeling that they can't. And then they have to come together as a team. And it's about connection. And no one else on the panel, I finished my sentence and they all just kind of went, yeah. So what do you think that Easter egg? And I don't have any problems with them for that. But that's where we're at. And that's why those shows with 4 billion subscribers and all that stuff lead to just the dumbing down of the conversation around it. Where it's just Easter eggs and clicks and that's okay. Again, I like Easter eggs. I like going to get my Star Wars explained to me. I like that. But even someone like Alex and Molly at Star Wars Explained realized that they were part of a bigger ecosystem of discussion, and they've grown as commentators. Other people haven't, and that leads to some of that back door being open to these true villains of the discourse coming in and dominating the narrative.
Exactly, and that's why they're connected. It's that backdoor factor. When the level is brought down to here, then you can have somebody come in and just say, yeah, the Easter eggs, which they only put in to disguise the fact that it's woke propaganda, BS, blah, shoving it down your throat. And it's totally and utterly fear-based, preying on the fear and isolation a lot of, especially like these young men online that that thrive and use that Easter egg knowledge and that understanding of the plan and what movie's coming next and everything as their sort of social currency. And then when you try to tell them that their self-inserts or whatever are quote being replaced by these other characters, then they become reactionary, and it's this visceral, gross sort of my identity is tied in with the works that I like, to the point where if it's suddenly not for me, then it has to be an attack. Then I want to see it fail. Even Stephen King was like, I don't like MCU movies, but why are we celebrating someone's project failing? It sounds to me like a bunch of young men that are just lashing out. Like, yeah, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he, even like someone who's been around the storytelling space as long as him, was like, I see what's going on. This is complete culture war crap that has been propped up by the same people that are going after drag bunches, by the same people that are going after queer folk online. Of course, they're going to go after this Muslim character and this black woman and the real life person of Brie Larson, who is a white woman trying to use her platform for inclusivity. People sink their teeth into these projects. They sink their teeth into this discourse to inject other stuff. Like I have, for the record, I know we're talking about my experience with this as well. I have no issues being bullied online, but I also acknowledge I am secure in the fact that I'm a white passing cishet man living a heteronormative life with a simple experience who's always been represented. So if you want to call me soy boy, cuck, corporate shill, whatever, that's fine. I chuckle and I mute. It's annoying that you fill up my notifications. I get a notification and I think it might be Dua Lipa related. Then I click it and I see your, rad guy 0264589. Like, great, really original. I in the comments here, I guess like some big publication on quartering, whatever the hell, picked it up and been spread around. Like,
that's an absolute monster of a human being who's making a lot of money running these kind of wars.
Yeah, and we know a lot of those and YouTubers and everything. Like, it's just crazy. It's crazy that this has become a cottage industry to spread this hate. It's crazy that people think that there's like machismo involved, like it's a masculinity fight, all because they made like movies. Like we had like, this Chris Gore guy that like used to be relevant is out there like, the death of Marvel Star Wars is when they made them into girl brands. That'll prove to be the financial downfall, whatever the hell he said. And it's like, what an absolute like moronic thing to say.
Yeah, that's a person's been in the business for a long time trying to cling on to some relevancy and sell the fear game. It's a fear game. They're not going to tell your stories anymore. Lie, which absolutely translate, which is part of this thing. Art is obviously political, and I saw someone recently go off on that. Is that why do we always have to talk about the politics of it? Because it's there and it's always been overlooked and it's always been forgotten. And those lies were allowed to grow, and so you just think it's a story that's about three girls. That ain't for me. And if you're, that's people with not even grave intentions, just living through life. And if you don't engage with the story that's there for you, I think you're just going to miss a lot of things. And so that's a self-hurt. But then to have all those folks like you're talking about, and to have just, again, I go to the people that don't mean bad by this, Alden, who just put out polls. Why did you think it failed? And leave not even 1% of a space for the conversation about all the isms and all the reasons. And even though that's not all of it, I don't think the box office is low simply because of one, the casting choices or
absolutely can't be one factor, especially post strikes. And that's the, and
there's this willingness to leave out reality in that discussion for the sake of yay or nay, bomb or success.
100%. And there's a business conversation to be had about why The Bar has become biggest movie ever, or teeny tiny indie, we've killed the middle movie. All those things are absolutely real. And we had people also in my replies that were not, that I can tell, bigoted, moronic, G&G quartering, douchebag types that were like, well, what about this? What about Barbie? What about Oppenheimer? Which I would remind you had full press tours and premieres. You people don't know how to pay attention to facts. You guys just they just live in their own world. What about this? Yeah, we've accounted for that. I think also it's an anti. I'm not trying to say that I'm the smartest guy ever when I say this, but there's an anti-intellectualism that has always been in America where we don't like thoroughness. Like a lot of the pushback I get a lot from people is like, oh, you needed 10 points to make your big point, and it's like, yeah, that's because that's how it works. That's what it means to actually explain something. And part of this too, overall, is it's a very American problem, and it infects our pop culture, which is that people have these beliefs, but they want to have them in shadows, which is something that we've realized a lot. So when you say, hey, that's kind of racist, people will be like, he had to blame racism for the movies, Bob. Guess what, guys? He thinks you're racist. Like, they feel attacked by that being said, even though they want to do it. And then the other thing is the great contradiction of sort of this tough guy politics stuff, which is everything is great and tough and powerful. The white man hero story is powerful and unbeatable, and you can't replace it because it's the core. In the same way that the American family is man, woman, a couple of kids. Like, get that gay stuff out of here. But at the same time, even though it's the best and number one and unbeatable and core, it is also at the same time, from their perspective, constantly hanging on by a thread. The
nuclear family is just going to be blown away with a slight.
We are one pride parade away from the collapse of society, but at the same time, this is what society is, and you can never change it, snowflake. It's like, which one is it? You can't have both. You can't tell me these are boy brands and you can't replace these characters and get that out of here and get the brown girl out of here and the black woman out of here and it's ours and make Marvel male again and blah 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 blah. And that's such a strong point. You're so strong, and I'm the soy one, but then you're afraid of this superhero romp that everyone just says is a good time. So which one is it, guys? Are you constantly under threat, or are you the dominant? It doesn't make sense.
None of it, and none of it makes sense, and it all makes sense. And I want to go in so many different spots in this conversation because I feel as though this is where I'm at. You want to know why the guy who used to be on these silly little movie talk shows, is other outside of Force Center Casualty Talk, only talking about politics and world events now as most as I can? It's because it matters, and I was never taught that it matters. I grew up in that era where all this was silly little kid stuff. All this was, just a little romp with Ewoks. Had nothing to do with the Vietnam War. Nothing. No commentary at all. It was just a kids show, just a kids movie. And really, it's everything. And I remember during that post Last Jedi era where the Kelly Marie Tran stuff came up, and it was upsetting that anytime we wanted to address it on some of those panel shows I was on, there always had to be this insertion of the opinion of the character or movie. I don't like her, but this is bad. And it's like, this is beyond Star Wars. It has nothing to do with that. Whether you like the character or not does not enter into this conversation. We should start at this is bad. And it needs to be dealt with as that. And if you don't understand that these movies and shows are political commentaries, if you don't understand X-Men is a comment on civil rights, then you do carry that outside. You do carry that to real American history. And you do look at Abraham Lincoln and don't get the whole picture. He was great in many ways. He had flaws in many ways because that's the reality. But you put up this propped up movie version, and that's what you go to because you don't understand it. And that's why this stuff's important. And that's why the conversations around it, because, and I'll end my little rant here. You're right. Not everyone, I'll say the clear, not everyone who doesn't like the Marvels is any one of these isms. That's not always the case. I get it. And you're right. Everyone gets defensive, like you said, but you're right. But the problem is people I know in my own life who are, I'd call progressive people, who are reasoned people, will come up to me at a party or they haven't seen me in a while They'll be like, oh, hey, I saw this thing about Star Wars that Kathleen Kennedy's looking to replace all the legendary characters that George wrote, and they're selling George out, buying George out of that. And it's like, you're literally quoting an alt-right based grifter nerd culture war website. And every other thing you talk about in life is on the progressive side and the right side of history. Why did you fail to see it here? And
Absolutely.
I think because people look down on this culture stuff, the pop culture stuff. They look down on Star Wars is that fun thing. It couldn't have anything to do with the real world. Anyways, this guy says Kathleen Kennedy's got to go. And that's what upsets me. So you got the grifters making the money. You got the people voting for Trump. I have more problem with them sometimes than Trump, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
100%. It's absolutely. We talk about this a lot off air. We'll send each other angry texts like, "Yes, it's ridiculous that Star Wars YouTuber with a big following decided to say some dumbass, take, but that dumbass take got 30,000 views in 6 hours, and that it almost angers me more the people that fall in line. I want to highlight this comment here from Harrison Gibson. It's the same thing that they do with everything. Joe Biden is simultaneously weak and frail, but also super powerful and destroying America. Immigrants steal your jobs and mooch off welfare at the same time. It's true. There's all these contradictions of, is it a threat or is it not? It's all, the rhetorical strategies. There was a comment up here earlier from Jared from the Nerd Academy. I have so much to say that I can't fit in a live chat comment. I will plug, we did a 2-part, almost like 4-hour analysis of this type of problem. And it does take a lot to dive into. We have Andy checking in here. Fascist weirdos will manipulate anything to pull folks in. Star Wars, religion, video games, music, Norse mythology, history, whatever. Same playbook. Yeah, a lot of consistencies. And we've seen sort of, like you touched on with the panel shows, we've seen sort of people try to ride that line because they're afraid of losing that viewer. I have to say, I don't like Jar Jar before I say it's wrong what happened to Ahmed Best. I don't really like Jar Jar, but you don't do that to somebody. You could just say, don't do that to somebody, but you're afraid of losing that viewer. And we both come from professional radio backgrounds. This is, of course, something that we do because we love it and we're friends, but we are professionals. And how many times have you heard in this business, people make business decisions based on rage and based on, what is clickable? I remember starting out as an assistant producer and saying, why is every single thing on the news side of this building over there on the news side, why is it all conservative rage? And my first producer mentor, a gentleman named Rob Calvert, he said, well, liberal and progressive radio shows die very quickly. He's like, they don't retain. They don't hold numbers. They don't hold sponsors. And so Florida just phased them out after a while. You won't find one. And that problem is consistent across the internet. The internet is Florida. I hate to say.
It is Florida. Yeah. And working back to the title of this, the Villains of Marvel Discourse. I think that's a great title you came up with, Alden, because it's disheartening. It's disheartening to see how many people lean into it. And it's just disheartening, like I said, even more disheartening, people in the space, in the actual, what I would call legit movie reporters, who just don't seem to want to at least acknowledge that that's part of the conversation, the culture war stuff around the movies, and how harmful it is just to be like, oh, MCU burnout caused it to bomb. I'm sure that has something to do with it. Also, the fact that people can't afford to leave their houses, the fact that people don't want to leave their houses to catch disease or get shot up, or again, just can't afford to. There's hundreds of reasons, but you're only engaging with the number one reason, which has to be this cheering of the downfall of something people love. And that's disheartening to me.
Yeah. I mean, this poor young woman director, I don't mean poor like she is poor, but poor that her talent is poor, but poor, I feel bad for her in the situation. Nia DaCosta, a black woman director in her 30s, making this big break. She did the Candyman film as well. She's had other features, and she comes in and she has to take this bullet because why? Like, people start saying that she's doing things wrong when legendary directors like Spielberg have done the same stuff. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And breaks my heart. And I will say, just because Eli in the chat wanted me to say a line that I say a lot, these are people that think Jaws is about the shark. That is that is my go-to. My second one is these are people that think ET is about the alien. It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah. It takes us. We have some other questions you have here I want to get to, but yeah, the one that gets me most. Well, there's a lot that get me most upset, but one that kind of gets into my skin because I know some really nice people that say it and do it. Star Wars is only about Star Wars now. That is so not true. And I heard it a lot around Obi-Wan Kenobi. That show's got so many ideas that have nothing to do with Star Wars. It has to do with our souls. And if you can't see that, like you said, circle it on the page. What's the main idea? But all you see is, oh, that's a Jawa, and you're supposed to get that. And Star Wars is just about itself now. And that's the surface level bullshit that leads to all the other things we are talking about creeping in.
Absolutely. So just to round this out, I will say, am I bothered about being bullied? No. If you are a bully and you're watching this, comment away. You're probably already muted. That does not affect me. I do think that there is a lot of, and this is a larger conversation we can save for a different episode, but there is actually merit, I think, to using your privilege, the privilege that I have, that you have, that some of our co-hosts have, to step out in front and sort of draw fire away. I'm fine. Blow up my replies and leave women of color on Twitter alone. I'm good with that. Come blow the smoke this way. But we're not gonna not clown you. We're not going to not analyze what the issue here, like we've been doing for the last 20 minutes. Like this is a problem. It is indicative of a lot of things. These people vote. And if you think that seeing this joy in little girls and people of color is a bad thing, then you gotta fix your heart. I feel sorry for you.
That's the thing too. People sometimes ask what's Force Center about, and I'll say, what it's about is you might not like the sequel trilogies, and we can have that conversation, but I will not let you take that joy away from the 7-year-old I see at a convention dressed as Rey. That's what Force Center is about, and we're not perfect, and you're right. It's a danger of sounding like we're the ones who got this right. We're not. It's just you see it happening everywhere, and it spills on out. And it's hard to watch, and I've seen so many people that I know and have worked with or used to know around the circles just slip away into this fear-based grifter mentality. And it's working, unfortunately, right? They're buying more fancy dinners tonight than I am. And it's tragic on a lot of levels, I think, but it is what it is. I can't change that. I can only do what I can do for myself and all of you.
To paraphrase Lord Beric Dondarrion, the enemy always wins, but we still have to fight. We still have to do ANYTIME.
Yeah. A couple more things in there you wanted to talk about.
I wanted to know, just as we start to round this topic out, when it comes down to anything, I think it's important, anything in this space, I think it's important that people hear maybe how we've navigated this and how we personally do it. And you've been in the space during a lot of different eras. And so I'm curious sort of how you deal with this, or how, your fiance, of course, as well, has been in this space and has been a host, and you work with other hosts. Like when it comes down to this space, it's hard to sort of be like, here are my tips. But when we're talking about, like you brought up when we were covering Willow on Casually Talk, I think you handled that beautifully. Like, did you think that story was for you? Not really. But once you actually accepted that, you were able to have a relationship with it. But someone might attack you for that take or any other take. Someone might attack you while you're on your journey of growing with the times, or imploding out of fear. And that's that conflict. So what are some nuggets of wisdom that you have about that?
Look, starting with Willow, that was a weird experience for me. I was so looking forward to the show, and the first couple episodes just didn't connect with me. And I want to be clear with that phrasing. It wasn't that the show didn't work or I thought the show was bad. It just very clearly, I was like, it's not connecting with me for a lot of reasons. And that might be the presentation, acting choices and stuff like that. Right. So that's why it's that really gray area, right? Where it's like, well, I have some issues with some of the acting choices, but it doesn't mean I have issues with the actors. It just, I'm not connecting with this. And at one point, and they address it. What's the character? Because I haven't watched the show once, and now none of us can watch the show again. My guy, the one who
Thraxis Borman.
Borman. When he has the revelation late in the show, because he's got the armor on, he's trying to wear that chainmail, and it's all, and then he realizes, and he literally says, "Ah, I understand now. This isn't my story. I'm here for you. You're not here for my story." That was a great meta moment, and it was a great powerful moment for me as a fan to go, that is sometimes the experiences, and you have to discuss the 360 degrees around the content sometimes as well. And that's the thing. It's changed over the years. And as far as, my philosophy, and I say it in every one of my stand-up acts, is do not fight change, find your place in change. That wasn't always the case. If you go back, I go back on my Facebook memories, Alden, and there's nothing that I want to take down. Because actually also, and there's some moments where I'm like, oh, maybe, again, it's nothing like, oh, I better get that. It's just this like, I don't think that way anymore, but I'm okay leaving it up because I want to leave some breadcrumbs on the trail. That's where I came from to where I am now. When the first controversy hit of Force Awakens cast read-through goes out, that black and white photo, and we were all excited, and we were on some of the shows I was on at the time, excited. And then other people were like, wow, there's only like 2 women in the cast. And that's the first time that kind of started coming up around the Star Wars discussion world. I didn't fight against it, but I tried to be reasoned about it. Be like, well, the cast hasn't been revealed yet, and some of that's true. I think that we have a reactionary problem in the world. But what I slowly realized is, oh yeah, I'm seeing something different because of my journey versus theirs, and to go forward, all of us need to go forward. I need to include, or at least be aware of those other people's journeys. And that was the big first lesson for me. And how to navigate it, I don't know, man. Take it case by case, day by day, and just try not to be the old bitter a-hole who thinks he's a threat to film.
100%. And Andy's comment here goes perfect with that, with not being the bitter one. Not every piece of media is for you. That doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it's not worth engaging with. Sometimes for someone else, and that's okay. And that really is it. Whether it's what you watch, who you vote for, how you act in a supermarket, self-checkout line, like. It's about, do you think about others, and do you think outward, or do you only think inward? Of course, a very Star Wars idea, a very important idea to both of us as well. And
an idea I want to point out, an idea I fail at daily, right? We're all the stars of our own shows. That's our nature. How do you overcome that, and how do you work through that? As part of what's going on, and to see it happen here, to be not, I want to say at the forefront of digital media discussion, but 2012 was a different time. On these pop culture podcasts, I can tell you. And I watched it slowly change, and I watched who changed with it and who didn't.
Absolutely. And sometimes just walk away. I know some prominent YouTubers that hint, hint, they're married, and one of them just deleted all social media off the phone, and the other one checks when they feel like it. And sometimes that's it. Sometimes it's just about walking away.
Walk away. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Yep. Absolutely. So I think that wraps it here on the Marvels. Again, the irony being, neither of us have seen this. This is a cultural conversation, not a movie review. So
because it ain't about it. Because I don't want to hear I didn't like it, but I don't care. Let's focus on the butt. Yeah.
Ken, there is somebody out there who is making a big change. A big change that's not necessarily interpersonal, although it might be. And if he ever wants to come on the show, I would welcome him with open arms. And that is Snoop Doggy Dogg.
Oh, that's right.
This story that I wanted to throw in here toward the end, because it is an entertainment story. Snoop Dogg, owner of a Mandalorian armor, cousin of WWE star Sasha Banks, now Mercedes Moné, and musician. Snoop Dogg has quit smoking, a statement that shocked the world. Snoop Dogg decided to take to all his social media, and you have to do like double and triple checks on these things now. Like, am I reading some AI generated nonsense post? Am I reading somebody's idea of a joke? But no, he did indeed release a statement. After much consideration and conversation with my family, I've decided to give up smoke. Please respect my privacy at this time. Doesn't mean he's never going to, just based on those words, give up smoke, doesn't mean he won't still indulge in other forms of the devil's lettuce. But
the devil's brownies.
The devil's brownies, perhaps. Look at the Look at the comments. People are
Lies.
people are discovering this for the first time. Oh, I'm so sorry to have broken this news. Snoop Doggy Dog.
Oh, Will McClay, this feels like a setup for a Super Bowl commercial. Maybe he's gonna represent some e-cigarette weed at the Super Bowl.
Wow, that'd be
I believe
fascinating.
him, though. I'm taking him on face value here.
Yeah. So this, do I have much to say about Snoop? No, I don't know Snoop. I have never met Snoop. Never been to a Snoop concert. I like the guy well enough. But it just dawned on me that it would be fun to throw out what are some things that are key to the Ken and Alden life experiences that we should probably quit.
Outside some of the emotional ones, the deep-seated self-loathing, all that kind of stuff, I'll say I've got to get a handle on my whole life is a cheat day. And, follow your bliss, be who you want to be comfortable in your body. I'm often not comfortable in my body. And I have a gym at my house, a full gym in my garage, and I should be in better shape. I should be ready to fight Mark Wayne Mullin, and I'm not. And it's because I'll do 5 days of great working out. And on the 6th day, I'm like, F it. And I have a bad meal. And then on the 7th day, I go, well, that was fun. Let's do that again. And I willingly just submarine all my efforts. But I have a bucket of candy that no one took on Halloween. Not one piece of candy was taken. Instead of donating it, giving it to someone else, throwing it away, I'm slowly eating every piece of candy. That's what I got to stop. If Snoop Dogg can give up smoking, I think maybe I can cut down on sugar.
Yeah, mine is similar to you. I think I need to quit feeling like the ability to have ease of access to all foods via delivery apps means I need to do it. I will constantly just be sitting in my room like, I want chicken tenders, and then I'll just order them to the house, and I have to stop that. It's a bad money decision, and it's a bad health decision at the same time.
Look, and life is hard, man. If going to get a double cheeseburger order with large fries at McDonald's and you finish it before you get home because you eat it in the car like a panicked rat trying to find some scraps in a Subway, it's okay. It's okay. We're not 100%. Shaming anyone for that, but I know it, and in my head, I'm like, make a better choice.
Yeah, I think my other one probably would be like arguing online. I know you don't do that. You are great about that.
Well, because I'll tell you why. I really stopped being online in a major way years ago. And I'm on Blue Sky. Follow me on Blue Sky. I posted one thing there, and people are like, well, friends of mine are like, it works when you engage. I'm like, I don't want to engage. And it's not about the stuff we're talking about today. I look back at my Facebook memories again. I'll look back on it, and it's like, I woke up and thought that the world needed to know, hey, had a good donut. Like, no, I don't. I'm done.
They didn't need to know. I will say, Maddie Gunner, how dare you? You want to quit goth women? No, you shouldn't want to quit that. Maddie, there are some things that are sacred. Don't even joke. I do want to go back though. Andy, of course, yes. I think Andy often the voice of wisdom. Other ways to enjoy that are less harmful to your health. That's true. I will say, as a person that indulges, and I do, I haven't actually smoked any of that product in a long time. I am a cherry lime gummies guy, and it's better for my lungs, and it just move on, and there you go. And it is good for him. I'm hoping he's okay. I'm not going to speculate, but let's hope he's all good. Facebook memories remind me how much I've grown. Yes.
Yeah, that's my point. Sean Room. I also like what Andy said in that thing of jokes aside, good for him for risking his brand. This is very much his brand. And he's not a hero. There's other heroes in the world, but this is it's risky, and it takes a certain bit of internal strength.
It's as integral to his brand as like rock music and Del Taco are to your brand, or like it'd be like me giving up Dua Lipa or Mark Ellis giving up Van Halen. Like there are things that are so core. It'd be like Grace giving up Chihuahuas. Like, no, that's her dog. That's the core dog.
Ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen for me either. Yeah. Love it.
So definitely huge time for change and for everything. So I wanted to highlight this Snoop story after some serious talk about culture. There are people out there making changes as well. But we wanted to open up some time for Q&A. I know we discussed that last week before we get into our final segments.
Yeah, direct Q&A here. I forgot to put I like my transition music. Sonic changes, Alden. Sonic changes.
Sonic
I'll work on that
change.
for next week. Hey, yeah, I want to highlight the super chat here from our buddy Ronan. Happy Life Day to you both. Everyone watching, all women, POCs, my LGBTQ plus homies, and everyone else. The alt cis hate. I love that. Thank you, Ronan, for your support. We appreciate that. So like Alden said, we got about 5-10 minutes here to take some direct questions. If you have some super chats or super thanks that draws their eyes, always appreciated, but not needed to join this conversation. So anything come to mind there, Alden? Who do we got? Who's first up?
Well, I'm looking at people's responses about what they would quit. I could give up Doritos. I don't know, but I'm weak for those tasty little triangles. I mean, yeah, Doritos are great. Ken, do you have a preferred Doritos flavor?
Just the regular. I could, and I need to avoid. If I have one, I have the bag. But for me, it's Cheez-Its. I had to leave Cheez-Its behind because
Really?
Cheez-Its will. I'll get the family size, and I'll sit down and play some Fortnite, and the family size box is gone.
We have a great Q&A question. Alden, who the fuck are you? I don't know much about you. Well,
okay, I'll get to let you answer in your own words here. But first of all, for
sure.
those who don't know, Kingsport Kyle is a longtime listener of mine. He is hilarious in chat. Sometimes he'll say some things that make your eyebrows kind of go up, and other times you'll be on the floor laughing. Kingsport Kyle is one of my favorites. But he's right. He doesn't know who you are. So Alden, who are you?
Yeah, for longtime Ken listeners or people that are just finding us both, I'm Alden. I'm a broadcaster. I'm a podcaster. The Star Wars space and in the radio space, I've produced rock radio. I've produced 80s, 90s Today, Family, 90s, and here I am. I've written online for some different places, and I've done the reviewer thing. I've been podcasting since I was like 14. Ken and I have known each other since 2019. I was a listener for Force Center and Casually Talk. Then over time, we started to work together, and we worked on Casually Talk together, and now here we are. I think that is probably the shortest version that I could possibly give.
Yeah, and you're the guy that on a Saturday morning will sip some coffee in your backyard while watching your dog play, and you'll get into a 4-hour debate with someone who approaches the space at a more bitter, surfacely level, and it's wonderful. Wonderful. You're a bit of an attack dog.
Ben.
Yeah, you're you're an attack dog that sometimes I need around me.
Yeah, we're kind of like the Balin and Shin of this game, and it's obvious who is who because I would look good with a Shin hairstyle, I think.
And I'm working on my bed.
Ice cream and goldfish.
Ice cream and goldfish are there too. I want to. Andy Hodges says, "Ken is first and foremost Coach Balon in my head. We do not party rock." That is a deep cut reference that not a lot of people. I was in the second episode of it was like a 3-episode season of School of Thrones. Which came out, I think, after the first season of Game of Thrones. We shot it at least around that time. Written by a friend of mine named Zach Grafton, produced and directed by Matt Mercer. Mercer Ray was involved.
Oh, wow.
A lot of wonderful people, and they stuck me in there because I was their friend who loved Game of Thrones the first season, and I got to play Coach Balon. So yeah, it's out there. Look it up. School of Thrones. A lot of fun.
Oh, that's great. God, you were Balon? That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. I really like that. Eric Monroe says Oreos. Look at Alden, also known as Harrison Ford. I wish you all would start calling me Harrison Ford. That'd be great. Orlando Calrissian. Riz, Ken, if you don't know, is like the ability. It's a Gen Z thing that I think is great, and so I've adopted it.
Okay,
Riz.
The only thing I know about Gen Z is they don't want to see no fucking in the movies. That's all I saw. That's all I know.
They don't like the sex, evidently.
All right. First question coming in here. If you got a question, now's the time. We got about 5 minutes here to answer your questions as we close out the show. 8984M always checks in on the Force Center live shows. What are your good first date spots? So I'm going to do a sub question back to you, Alden, because you're more, I'm 7 years in right now, and I know you had a long term in the past there, so you know both sides of it. But I'm not looking for first dates right now. You might be closer to that than I am. I don't know your current situation. We haven't talked today, but do you have standbys? So your first dates are, I definitely take them to Chili's too at the airport because it's my home. And I feel comfortable.
Look, I will say that might be a great litmus test. If she doesn't, if they don't like the Chili's chip salsa, it's over.
Mm.
It's not worth it. No, I actually don't. I don't have any standbys. It's just more so general formats. Like I think the coffee date is tried and true and perfect, and I've used it multiple times.
Yeah.
My longest relationship started over coffee. I think that movies are great if you want an idea. Movies could be first or second to me because you don't get to know that person, but it is good to observe them in a movie. They can't behave.
Their behavior in the movies, and I want to make sure my behavior is the best as well. But movies were never a spot for me, but unless there was a dinner attached before, right? But I do believe, I think you're right about you're observing them, but also you're sitting in the dark for 2 hours. You're not getting to talk and connect, and you're just watching some, Martin Scorsese film. I don't know about that on first date.
Yeah. What is the first date scene like in California? Is there anything unique about it that you find because it's Hollywood, there might be more options?
Yeah, it's particularly painful. Here's where I struggle to answer this. You know why I struggle to answer this question? To be honest, all but one of my serious relationships have come out of work. So the first date was working with them, and then whatever happens from there is what happens. And it can be a fancy dinner, it can be a game night, it can be, something. And that's my truth. It's very hard. It's very hard for me to be like, oh yeah, I pick them up. We get roses. No, usually it's like, hey, what are you doing later? You want to get out of work? I think I like you,
Yeah, no, absolutely. That does change things as well. I've had a few out of high school, a few out of work. It's sort of like all the foundational work is built in. So that changes things for sure. But yeah, I think any date that is conversational is good. I don't think concerts are good for that because the interaction. Yeah, clubs. I've never been a clubber.
No, I like Eric Monroe's in my younger days with miniature golf. Mini golf's a good thing.
Okay. I like that.
Andy says you got to go to dinner after the movie so y'all can discuss the film. And then you can find out if your date is media literate. And that might be.
That's which increasingly important for me over time. Got a first out of Rise of Skywalker. So there's that. Hey,
that's good.
Good job. Riz knapsack. But yeah, so there's some ideas on the first dates. We got a few more questions coming in here.
I'm just glad I don't have to anymore.
Retired from the game.
Some slang words y'all used back in the day from Kingsport Cow. Thank you for the support. Kingsport Cow is also a channel member here, so you can watch my shows live on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I have to be careful. Because I grew up born in the 70s, raised in the 80s, and a lot of the slang words we used, Alden, we shouldn't have used.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not on some of them. And even in my growing up, I mean, we had the Hillary Duff. I think it was Hillary Duff. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Hillary Duff Don't Say Gay campaign, which was successful, I might add, for at least the people I hung out with. So yeah, a lot of the ones that did get phased
gay campaign, right? That's a good versus
that was the one that should have existed. Yes, exactly. Back when that phrase was, well intentioned. I came up in high school when lit was a big thing. Like, oh, the party's gonna be lit. It's gonna be cool, great, exciting, fun, whatever. Rad came, went, and then arrived again, and that one's hard. Sick was still big. Sick.
Yeah. See, I was raised in the middle of California, like on the beach, but 4 hours from San Francisco, 3.5 hours from LA. So we picked up more LA stuff. Like we didn't say hella. Like when Gwen Stefani showed up singing hella, that was like, what's that? It's something they say in NorCal. Like, I don't know. So radical, that kind of stuff. That was just part of the parlance of my time.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that I picked up was because of people that I watched or movies that I watched and stuff. And so I've always kind of talked the way I talk now. So maybe I'm not the best person to ask for this, but I know that there are a lot of words like a get together being called a Getty was a big thing in South Florida.
Okay.
Like, oh, we're having a Getty at Ken's.
Love
like
it.
that was huge. And I never adopted it, but I heard it constantly. So there's a few. I know Jared and a few other people in the space are from the Pennsylvania, greater Pennsylvania, you know, either it's Philly or Pittsburgh, whatever. But John gets said a lot. You know, John, it's a place of any noun can be a John. Give me that John, going to the John, whatever. So I've always thought that was fun and entertaining.
I love when Yinzers run wild out there. Yeah, Vermont Mike, he's right in my my age bracket. He says the boombox slang stands out to me, but it was called something else. Yeah, that's an example of things you look back and go, oh, I understand the coding that was all around that word.
Absolutely. Where do you want to go next?
Great stuff here. We got a good question. You all got good questions here. Jared's got one I'm gonna get to, but Oscar Film Forecast, Jack, I believe, checking in. Why do you think all the annoying go woke, go broke campaigning didn't affect a movie like Barbie as much as Marvel? Is it because the male audience was as invested in that brand? This is great. This could almost be its own discussion point because it does allow us to address what was part of our conversation earlier, Alden, which there are factors, and sometimes the factor is, hey, it's not working as well, or this, that. I'm not just talking about the Marvels. I'm talking about other things like, hey, the marketing, this and that. And like Barbie, I really do feel yes to what Oscar the Film Forecast is saying here. The male audience maybe was not overlooking the movie and just kind of shouting some stuff down on it. I don't know. But it was an event, right? It was. I think that Barbie, and yes, you can throw the Oppenheimer stuff in there too if you want, but whatever. Barbie was hopefully not a once in a lifetime experience, but that was a cultural event way beyond the movie.
I agree. When you look at, you know, some straight up sort of just business factors, like just realities of the brand, the fact that there had never been the live action Barbie movie before is right at the top of that list. Like that is a brand that is intrinsic to Americana. Like that's part of the identity of the girl, you know, girlhood as a concept. Barbie's right there. Barbie is as big a thing as Nike or Coke, you know, in terms of, especially on the toy side of things. It's Barbie and G.I. Joe sort of like defined that. And so for that to finally be realized was sort of like the first time the Avengers teamed up. It's like Michael Keaton Batman. Like it's just, it's finally here, and it's one of our last bankable stars that can sell something on her face and name, and Margot Robbie. And so a lot of those things, the fact that it did get that press tour where they were able to have Margot at every event in an outfit from the toy line, to do everything in pink, to have Ryan Gosling lean in and sort of really, truly, and through a funny path, but show men a different way. In that character, it was both adults and for families. You know, you're getting moms in there that maybe wouldn't go for Marvel, when at the same time, I think that core point is right. The men weren't going to attack Barbie because they wouldn't admit to enjoying Barbie, even if they did. They're not going to be online saying you took my Barbie away, because that inherently implies an ownership of Barbie, which they would not want. So.
And I think Jared, as he often does, has two great comments here, because Marvel stuff has a weird facet where it's still got the shadow of being a boys brand. So there's this weird pop culture replacement paranormal that could be exploited by some of those folks we were chatting about earlier. Meanwhile, Barbie can be written off as inherently feminist propaganda because it's for girls now being imagined as woke, but a different flavor of woke. Yeah, I really agree with that take as well. I literally grew up in that girls' toys and boys' toys era. That was the aisles, right? And they're still kind of coded that way, right? They don't say it on the aisles, but you know what aisle you're in, or at least in terms of marketing when you're in an aisle. But you know, watch those old, any documentary on toys back in the 80s. And they'll have so and so head of Hasbro boys toys division. Like it was so coded like that. And I think, you can take that fear and absolutely infuse it into this stuff there. So yeah, great point, Jared. Great question from Oscar Film Forecast, which as I found out later, that's not his name. It's that's the name.
Film Forecast.
Yeah.
Film Forecast is not his last name.
Yeah, love it. Speaking of Jared the Dark Jedi. Here's the Q. Q means question, Alden.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Q is John Delancey from TNG.
That's true. Great character. I got enough Riz to let you know that Q means question. Right.
Oh,
With Andre 3000's new album, with its major pivot in style and Andre's whole, I don't have any raps right now. What has been your spiritual genre change as a person? And by the way, I am an old school. I had Outkast on my iTunes back in the day. I want to sing on that. I have not even heard the music. I've seen the return. I'm intrigued by this. But what has been your spiritual genre change as a person? Alden, where do you go with that?
Well, first, just a quick aside. Are you familiar with the genre change that Andre has done?
I just saw a picture of him on like CNN that he was back or something. I was like, oh, I'll earmark that for later.
So he's back. He has some quotes out there that I won't attempt to quote directly, but paraphrasing basically that he's like, I'm too old for rapping is a young man's game. I don't have anything to rap about. I'm not going to force it. And I'm 48, 49 years old, whatever it is. This is an album of flutes, a lot of flute music. And completely changed. And he has a song on it, Nikki informed me earlier, called That Night in Hawaii When I Turned Into a Panther and Started Making Those Low Register Purring Tones That I Couldn't Control. Shit was wild. That's the name of the song.
Love it.
So
I'm in.
Big shifts here.
I'm in.
In terms of us as people and as music fans, it's interesting because I have had a music fan change that I felt was pretty spiritual growing as a person. When I was a really angry, pretentious rock only middle schooler, early high schooler, rock is real music, rap is shit, and this is pop is just bullshit, top 40 garbage, simple, not real musicians. And I've completely changed on that to the point where I consume every genre of music except country. I will do almost everything, and I love my pop queens and my jazzy people and my show tunes and just all kinds of stuff. So that's been big. As a human being, it's almost, I guess, that I have completely stopped trying to be. I think in that same vein, I'll be 28 soon, and so the era where I really tried to be colder is sort of going away. Like I can still be pretty cold and I can be angry, but like I love to cry. That's a big thing. I love a good cry. So that's been big.
Spiritual genre change. I'm so happy on your crying and so happy that you're turning 28. I remember 2 decades ago. It's good. That's why we're working together, the old and the new. Yeah. For me, I mean, I think I've in terms of, I know I just maybe not the spirit of the question is about music, but it's like, yeah, I was when I was a rock DJ, I used to attack the Spice Girls until I loved them. I used to make fun of Lady Gaga until I realized she's an amazing artist. Is now absolutely one of my favorites, who I draw a lot of creative lessons from. That kind of stuff, those kind of changes. But that speaks to a certain, even though I often feel bad about myself, and that's the thing I'm working on, a certain just understanding of who you are and who you aren't, and who you aren't going to become. The fear of, like you said, I know, man, I listen to rock. These British girls are dancing. What is that? What is that? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I think that's part of a growth. And as far as the one thing I'll say in my advancing years, Alden, is who I was at 30 was not who I was at 35. It's not who I was at 40. I went through some big changes over the last 3-4 years. Just easy summation is politically and socially, but I was never an asshole on the other side of things. It was just like I was a kid who just felt nothing affected me, because nothing does, right? That's the privilege thing people talk about, or part of that privilege discussion. Who's in the White House didn't affect me growing up. It affected other people. And I think connecting to that has been the biggest spiritual change, trying to lead with empathy and compassion and understanding, versus my instincts are to be grumpy. I'm a comic. We want to go on stage and make fun of people, right? And that's why you got to reverse that. And I'm I try as a comic to reverse that. That's where my comedy is about me finally realizing maybe the world's right and I'm wrong, and how do I adjust to that? Versus going on stage and going, I'm right and you're all wrong, and don't you all know it? because that's the truth.
Yeah.
I'm telling the hard truths because I'm right, you're wrong. That's been a big change in me. So from Spice Girls to progressive views on the world, it goes hand in hand, Alden.
It's beautiful. I think I love that already. Episode 2, an emerging theme on Anytime is it's all connected. It is.
It is. Okay.
Everything is connected. I just want to say the chat is having a meltdown because I said I'm turning 28. We have some people repping their 30s, repping the 40s, repping 50s. I love seeing the age range of our friends here. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
Look, my birthday's on a Saturday this year. We'll do Alden's 28th birthday celebration the day before, and you all can give me advice, and we'll talk about it. And,
yeah. I love that. I love that.
Eli's not even 20 soon. Man, get out of here, Eli. Go do your homework. I want to bring this up real quick from Robbie Smith, another collaborator in our fam.
Hey, Robbie, co-host of my show, Our Biggest Win, right here on the channel.
Saw Blink and Sarah Brightman in the same week and still haven't recovered from the cultural whiplash. I love that. That's great.
Yeah. Final super chat here from our buddy Brennan at Page Turners. They were not. Love you guys. Love Brennan. There's someone who just has a great perspective on the world and makes that choice every day. We love Brennan around here. So there you go. There you go. Well, we're almost out of here. Thanks for your super chats. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for hanging out with us here. It's the second episode, and we're going to start packing up. But we do want to do our segment like we like doing around here. Sonic changes, Alden. Your week ahead. This is where we maybe take a stab at predicting things for next week. I was a little off on who would drop out of the Republican presidential race to be the number 2 choice. I said Ron DeSantis would drop off, but no, Tim Scott did. So I'm going to hold true to that. There's some whispers that maybe Chris Christie, but he's saying no, he's sticking in there. I'm saying Ron DeSantis will. This is the week. I'm going to stick with it. This is the week he drops out of the presidential race for the Republican Party.
I am backing that prediction. I think it's coming. I don't think he wants to have a blue Christmas, so he'll do it now, bounce back during Thanksgiving, and then launch his boot line that you mentioned for the holidays.
That's what we got. So if you have any predictions, let us know for your week ahead. And as always, we do love pop music. We do love rock music. We do love all kinds of genres. And we think it's fun because I also think there's some poignancy to be pulled from lyrics, even some of the silly ones. But this one's not silly. This is a great song. Alden, this is your choice. A pop rock word of wisdom to leave on, sponsored by Pop Rockin' Radio, hosted by me. What do we have today?
Right here, we have a song from Forever and Sunset by Ezra Furman. Heard it first in the last season of Sex Education on Netflix. Check it out. Do you remember when we thought the world was ending? Seems funny now. The future is a text message sending out, out, out. I live forever in sunset and ending not quite done yet. Some people don't understand it. That has been, for me, my lyric of 2023. Those 2 tiny paragraphs. Everything is still in progress. People might not get it, but you get it. And whatever your sunset is, just embrace that and figure it out. And we might think that the world is ending, as we've covered in the first half of our show, but we still have each other, and the text is still sending. So you're a work in progress.
I absolutely love that. Great song. I played it on Pop Rockin' Radio per your suggestion. And Grace was watching Sex Education the other day, and it came up, and I got to sound like a hip cat full of all the riz in the world by saying I know who that song's from and who it's for. All of us. All right, that is it. We're out of here today. Thank you all. Don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You're here on the Ken Napzok channel, and it's going to remain here until we can build up the other channel and move that over. You know, it's all about partnership and monetization and all that good gross stuff. But subscribe over there for clip outs, supplemental content, and more. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Anytime On Air. Links for all that is down below. Final word from you, Alden, and we'll head on out.
My final word here is that next week, when the Fantastic Forecast drops and the internet starts falling apart, don't turn to us. This is not a movie news discussion show, but I'm sure we'll have something to say about our boy Pedro Pascal. But everybody, be good this weekend. Do your Thanksgiving shopping now, and we will catch you next time.
See you, friends. Bye.